All right, topic of today's video is hamstring injuries. Will one exercise prevent hamstring injuries? There's been a little bit of controversy in this, and that's why I'm bringing it up today. In the past, few months to a year about this, and figured it'd be a good topic for a video. So first off, let's talk about why hamstring injuries happen. So what are the risk factors for injury? So number one, previous injury. Unfortunately, if you've strained one hamstring, there's a very high, it's pretty likely that you would strain another one. There's a 2 to 6 times rate of re-injury. So if anyone who's been through multiple hamstring injuries, had a teammate, if you watch sports and you follow any athletes that have gone through this, you can understand that. Also, unfortunately, athletes that have had ACL, calf, other injuries also are at a higher risk for straining a hamstring. The second risk factor is high speed running. So high speed repeated running, things that are seen in kind of team sports. So soccer, basketball, lacrosse, football, where you have to do repeated sprints and get up to full speed as fast as possible. More so in the sports where the field is bigger and you have a lot more area to cover. So you're getting up to high full speed. Things like basketball do have a little bit of smaller court. So there's a little bit different risk factor in those sports versus, again, like a wide midfielder on a soccer team or somebody who's trying to get down to first base and beat a pass and going full speed, or 100-meter dash and track, that kind of thing. But high speed running is a risk factor because of the way that it uses the hamstring to produce, at max force to produce speed. Age is another risk factor, but understand that age over 23 years old. So as someone like me who is pushing 40, 23 isn't that old. A lot of elite pro athletes are in that age realm. So just understanding that age is a risk factor, but it's not exactly what you think. And then the fourth point that I want to have you take home about risk factors for injuries: flexibility is not a cause. We used to think that. I have a lot of athletes that come in, who've had hamstring injuries, will say like, well, I could have prevented this. I should just stretch more. And that's really not the case. Research shows that flexibility is not a cause. We also used to think that maybe it wasn't hamstring flexibility, but maybe it's an issue. So the hamstring's on the back of the leg. Maybe it's an issue with the flexibility on the front of the leg. So your hip flexor, that if that's tight, maybe it puts more pressure on the hamstring. We're finding that it's not the case. Or may not be the case. There's mounting research that's showing that. There was also, we used to think that maybe it was a strength imbalance, so not so much a flexibility, but a strength thing, where people are too strong in their quads and it's putting more pressure on their hamstrings, or not, the imbalance is larger. There is limited evidence to show that. The research is showing that that's the case. There's also limited evidence to show that if you have weak hamstrings, you're going to strain a hamstring. There is somewhat of an association of just more of the muscle structure. So the muscle fascicle means the muscle fibers kind of down. If you break a muscle down to its like smallest kind of components, that's what a muscle fascicle is. That sometimes is just kind of how people are made. Some people may be a little stiffer than others, down to that very micro level. But again, we don't have a ton of evidence for that. Might be an association there. I want to show you, so what do? We've got those risk factors. Hamstring injuries are common in sports. Can we prevent injuries? So this exercise, the Nordic hamstring exercise, came out a few years, 15, 20 years ago, started to be a little more popular due to research in Australian rules rugby that showed that there was a reduced rate of injury with doing this exercise. It became very popular in team sports. It still is to this day. And then there was a paper that came out in 2019, so not too long ago, but it claimed that this exercise could reduce the rate of injuries in half, which is a pretty bold claim, right? So 50%, those are pretty good odds. But very recently, so a lot of people jumped on that study, I guess, and this exercise became even more popular. But very recently, just within the past, I think about 6 months or so, I think the paper came out. There was a very well-known researcher that published a paper that questioned this. So they looked at the methods that 2019 paper used, and they called out some flaws in the methodology, and basically said that the conclusions were a little too optimistic. Just gonna close the door here because somebody's decided to, there's lawn mowing going on outside of my office door. So what do we do with all of this? A couple things. One, the paper that recently came out, because there's been a lot of back and forth on social media and among researchers about this as a result of it, but just understanding that the paper that came out didn't say we should not do Nordics. They didn't say get rid of this exercise. Here, I'm gonna play this again here. It just said that the findings weren't as optimistic as we thought. I was just at a soccer camp working with a bunch of young athletes. This exercise can be done with no equipment. You can have somebody hold the athlete's legs down and not use a barbell. I just used that because I was by myself demonstrating this exercise. It requires limited equipment. It is using the hamstring in a way that not a lot of exercises do. It, is a good strengthener. So there are some reasons that you can use it. We just can't be as bold about our claims. Like if you do this exercise, you're not going to strain your hamstring. But this is kind of the case with anything in sports rehab and sports performance. No one exercise prevents injury. Unfortunately, I wish it would be the case and make my life a lot easier, and make a lot of other people that work in sports medicine, sports performance a lot easier. But injuries are complex. They occur for a lot of different reasons, and we can't ever claim that just one thing is going to prevent all injuries. The other thing is when we make recommendations for our athletes on how they should either rehab or how they should do, performance training to get better at their sport or whatever they need to do to improve, those recommendations should always be made on the individual. So we can't just say a one size fits all, like do Nordics, it's going to help prevent your injury. Like they need to be made on the, what equipment do they have? What's appropriate for that athlete? What time of season are they in? I don't do these exercises with my sprinter athletes like right before a big meet because it can cause a lot of soreness. That's not appropriate. So just understand that it's better to individualize than just do a sweeping, one exercise prevents everything. So bottom line here is if you like Nordics, use them, go for them. But I don't think we can claim that if you have your athletes do them, they won't be injured. So thanks for tuning in, and until next time.